Stealth. The thieving profession. If a game gives me the option, I'm going to take it. If you don't, especially in RPGs, it means you're missing out on potential loot. And I like looting. Somehow, I had never played the original Thief series. The only thing I know about the Thief series is that you are a thief and your purpose is to thief. And then Thief released the remake, not the original. Is it a remake? Reboot? Whatever it was. They did that thing where they called this new installment the exact same thing as the original first game. Do you hate SEO? Please stop calling things the same thing as the other thing that is the same thing but older. But I remember playing this new Thief at one point and I was disappointed. The game gave me motion sickness for one, but also because it wasn't all that much about the thieving and more about the plot. Insofar as there was one, because I could not, for the life of me, remember what the story was even about. There's just a vague recollection of ghosts. That doesn't sell the narrative very well. I've been assured that the original Thief games are very much about thieving, and with that in mind, I finally played the full series. And now, I'm going to make that everyone else's problem. The Thief series follows the life of Garrett, Master Thief. Garrett is the scrungliest little guy you ever did see. He's both very good at his craft and also a tremendous stupid idiot. And that is why I love him. We open with his surface-level backstory. An orphaned Garrett tries to pickpocket a mysterious man who is immediately intrigued at the boy's ability to even see him. The mysterious man is a keeper. The keepers are a secret organization, and Garrett is invited and trained as one of them. This starts a simple tutorial where one of the keepers trains us in thieving. Stealth, knockouts, a bow and sword, climbing around the architecture.
Good job.
Congratulations, you're a keeper now. Or we would be, but Garrett changes his mind and goes back to thieving because keeper training is surprisingly useful in that profession. The Thief universe has several key factions, and the keepers are one of them. Arguably the most important one you'll meet. You don't get to know much about the keepers in this first game, but I've already played the rest of the games, so I'll tell you the important bits anyway. In short, the keepers protect the city by following prophecies they read in the glyphs. Being obtuse is also a job requirement. The keepers maintain the balance, as they call it. They're essentially following Jedi rules, vague attempts at neutrality while they mess around with the other two main factions in the game. Garrett must bring balance to the Force because he's pivotal in several prophecies. You thought this was just a game about thieving? Wrong. Well, partially wrong. There are two other main factions, the Hammers and the Pagans. The Hammerites are a religious organization. Sorry, I mean cult of zealots. It's never made clear exactly what their standing is within the city itself, because regular city guards do exist. The Hammers just also arrest people for all sorts of things, including heresy, to then throw them into a prison where they administer punishments. Their deity, the Builder, is a big guy with a hammer who can build things. You'd think there's more to it, but there isn't. They love how that big guy builds things with his hammer, and they aspire to build equally cool things with their own hammers. That also means they hate building materials in their natural state, like trees. The Pagans love nature, and they hate building materials, like metal. The Pagans and the Hammers being directly opposed to each other is the main problem in both Thief 1 and 2. The Pagans can do fun things like summon demons, raise the dead, and make really pretty gardens. Their deity is a kind of Baphomet situation, which makes sense because that name was apparently first used during the trials of the Knights Templar in our own world. Hammerites. He preferred when we didn't have electrical lights, and he loves trees, so in Thief 1, he's our antagonist. He's not just starting a tree planting initiative, he wants to open a portal to hell. There are more minor factions around, but these are the most important ones. And Garrett is in the middle of all this as an independent thief. He likes money, and money only. Our first real mission is to break into a guarded mansion and steal everything. Our contact, Cutty, provides us with a map, and Thief 1's maps are wonderfully crude. Look at these things, the bare minimum and whatever notes we could find. They're not especially interactive though. They'll tell you what general area you're in as long as the area is on the map, which, for some later missions, isn't often the case. In the end, your main way of orienting yourself in unfamiliar territory is to pay attention to the rooms and easy-to-recognize markings. Weird chairs, statues, or flower arrangements. The game itself has 3 difficulty modes: normal, hard, and expert. I decided to play on Expert because when cycling through these modes, you'll notice that entire objectives disappear. If you play on Normal, you're expected to complete the main mission objective and not much else. Expert instead wants you to find every piece of noteworthy loot, as well as the majority of valuables on the map before you make your escape. Garrett has to make rent. I have to play on Expert. We also can't kill anyone on Expert. We're just trying to make rent out here, not start a bloodbath. Literally, Garrett brings up his landlord constantly.
The rent is due. My landlord's even tougher than the hammers. Time to make a living. That pays the rent. But as my landlord recently reminded me, the rent is late.
One thing you'll notice immediately when you start the mission is that guards like to chat. While sneaking around, you can overhear little back and forths. There's one guard in particular whose voice appears in all 3 original games as the dumb or the drunk one every time. The guy who voice acts for the dumb guard is the same guy who voice acts Garrett, Stephen Russell. And that is extremely funny to me.
If I see a bad guy, I'll just point my sword at him and say, "Hey, bad guy, you're not supposed to be here."
This must be how they spend all those tithes.
I loved sitting around and listening to these conversations, not just because they often had information about my mission, but also because they were funny little breaks. The first of these takes place in front of the mansion's gate, between some guards talking about bears and stuff. This is where we learn the most important word in the game, taffer. Taffer is a multifunctional insult, and I don't know if they only introduced it because they didn't want to increase the game's rating by saying fuck, but either way, it's a great word. You will be called a taffer often throughout the game. You'll be told to taff off, or the guards might complain about another taff-in late-night shift. The phrase, "this taff-in taffer better taff off," is grammatically correct. How you deal with threats like guards is the main gameplay of Thief. You can kill them with regular or fire arrows, you can sneak around them quietly, or knock them out from behind with your blackjack, as long as they don't see it coming. Noisemaker arrows to form a distraction are technically also an option, if they weren't shit. Alas. An arrow I did use often was the water arrow. They douse flames and create a bit more darkness to move around in. Sometimes people care a lot when the fire around them mysteriously goes out. Sometimes they couldn't possibly give less of a shit.
You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it.
Anyway, we sneak in, steal our rent money, and move on to the next mission. We're breaking into a Hammerite mining complex quarry combination prison to find Cutty. He got himself captured, but also he owes us money. The mine is haunted by undead, but rent waits for no one. On Expert, we're also out to find Basso the Boxman. Why? Because Garrett wants to bang his sister. Yes, really. This means the Expert run is canon because Basso comes back in the next game, which means Garrett is canonically willing to risk his neck to get laid. The basic undead aren't much of a problem. The only thing that'll kill them proper is a water arrow doused in holy water, so it'll cost you 2 items to deal with a single threat. Not worth it. But they're slow enough that you can run laps around them. The hammers are a bigger problem. They're not as unbothered as regular guards, and there's a lot of them. I got into a few situations where I accidentally alerted them, and once a guard's alerted, they become impossible to knock out with a single blow to the head. You can technically knock them out in combat, but most of the time that outright kills them instead of putting them to sleep with a violent concussion and permanent brain damage, like I was hoping it would. The prison mission also saw me run into a lot more general movement limitations. The game lets you jump and run most places you can see, except when it doesn't. There are areas you should realistically be able to reach by crawling or jumping, but your hitbox gets in the way and Garrett isn't very flexible, so you can't quite reach. Like this little security balcony, very crawlable to me, not to Master Thief Garrett. Some of the guards also don't understand personal space. The guards in general have a good number of interesting bugs, mainly collision-based. When we find Cutty, he spills on an expensive artifact called the Horn I should probably steal next, before keeling over dead. Basso isn't dead, but he is unconscious, so we have to carry his dumbass out. The things we do for one-night stands, I guess. It isn't long before our landlord is asking for the rent again, so we decide to go after the Horn Cutty mentioned. The Horn sits in an undead-infested tomb, so that's easy loot. Undead are dumb. After this tomb job, we're finally rich enough to splurge on some new tools, lockpicks. We have to be rich for most of our tools when the only guy willing to deal with us is Farkas from Farkas Functionals. That's because Garrett refuses to share a cut of his loot with the local crime lords, although I'd argue his landlord's part of that group. They keep threatening Garrett, and Garrett keeps ignoring them until we walk into Farkas Functionals for some shopping, right when Farkas from Farkas Functionals gets an arrow lodged in his throat. They were aiming for Garrett, and clearly their eyes are failing them because they think they got us. When we follow our assassins back home, they lead us straight to Ramirez, one of the crime lords. We decide to steal all of his stuff to make a point, using our new lockpicks. To use the lockpicks, you click and hold on a door until it opens, only ever an issue if you're on a guard's patrol path. And because I enjoyed knocking out every guard in sight for a while, that rarely happened. I put them together in a neat pile near the entrance. They weren't putting up much of a fight.
Is there someone there? Oh, is that you?
Although someone did pull the alarm on me at one point, probably because they found my people pile. And since we're stealing from thieves already anyhow, our next mission is to rob the Thieves Guild, because they beat us to a heist we wanted to pull ourselves. Their hideout sits right underneath a gambling den. For some reason, when you enter the casino, this music starts playing. We start our mission with a classic time to make a living from Garrett, and then... I hate the mission. I hated this mission. There's a lot of running back and forth in the sewers, as well as more pixel hunting than most other missions. The sewers themselves look very similar, so my usual practice of picking up on good local identifiers to find my way around was made a lot harder for it. In general, my Thief 1 experience was often, I cannot find shit, and this level made a great case for that feeling. My script notes for this particular mission just say, how will I sufficiently express how much I hated the Thieves Guild level? And I hope that covers my feelings on the matter well enough. The next mission starts our main storyline. We're approached by Victoria, who hires us to steal a magical sword owned by an eccentric nobleman called Constantine. The sword would be well guarded, and the mansion confusing to navigate. An understatement. We can't find a map, so we had to start our own, which is where the maps are only useful insofar as the map is complete comes in. But the job pays very well, so we strap in to earn our rent. Because we're in a house built by the Mad Hatter, I relied on my rope arrows a lot more this time. I love rope arrow. You can shoot this thing into any wooden surface and it'll latch on to drop you a rope. You can then climb that rope, and if you can reach it, you snag the rope arrow back too. I would usually only need a single arrow for any level because I reuse the same one over and over again. Sword in hand, we meet up with Victoria again, and she brings us to meet Constantine. This had been a test. Now it was time for the true job. We sit on a vine-covered chair with hooves for legs and are hired to steal a gemstone called the Eye, kept hidden in an old, undead-infested Hammerite cathedral. Garrett is unfazed, probably because Constantine is ready to pay us 100,000 gold upon receiving the Eye. Retirement money. He also lets us keep the magical undead-slaying sword we stole. To top it all off, Victoria keeps finishing Constantine's sentences in a suspicious tone.
Victoria and I are
old associates.
What exactly is this item?
It is the gemstone called the Eye, for its unusual
appearance.
She also uses phrases like, "It's time for the payment you've been promised." And those should set off red flags immediately, but remember that Garrett becomes a tremendous stupid idiot when money's involved. He ignores every conceivable warning sign and not only accepts the contract without asking for so much as 50 or even 20% of the payment in advance, he also drinks the drink they offer him, the drink that grows vines. That man really wants to retire. And so we're off to the haunted Hammerite Cathedral, now including these Hammerite ghosts that talk in reverse and cast Fireball. The cathedral had fallen to some sort of catastrophe, something to do with hordes of undead. Undead sent by the trickster, it later turns out, presumably to get his hands on the Eye we're meant to steal. Wow, Garrett. No, please, don't let the crimson hue of the gigantic red flag the size of the entire cathedral stop you. We've got rent to pay. Because the cathedral was the target of an undead horde, there are a lot of undead around this time, especially just across this particular bridge. Up until now, the only way I dealt with undead was running away. This was a pretty big group though, and some of the doors near them needed to be lockpicked. There was no way I had enough holy water for the entire set, so my first idea was to bait them into crossing the bridge, only for me to pull it up behind them and explore in peace. But their pathing didn't allow them to cross that bridge. and I didn't know my sword could kill them yet because I hadn't tried. So I started experimenting with explosions. That worked, and I know you can't see my face in this recording, but I was delighted with the results. Once we get closer to the cathedral, it turns out the door is shut using magical locks. At the window, we can see the eye hovering about, very normal, before it starts talking to us in our head, also very normal. It tells us that the keeper sealed this door, and only they know how to open it. The nearby secret keeper hideout should be able to tell us more. It is revealed that we need 4 talismans, hidden in various places, to open the door. They emphasize how important it is that we do not open that door. Garrett, don't let that stop you, I guess. The Earth Talisman is held by the Hand Brotherhood, mages. Their complex consists of a central plaza and 4 elemental towers. The mission itself has us go from tower to tower, each time finding the key for the following tower in the current one, with the first one sitting in the water tower because it got flooded and became inaccessible to anyone but water mages. And Garrett holding his breath for a really long time. The mages themselves can kill you very quickly if they spot you, but they're not particularly intimidating otherwise.
Ooh, I think a baby bird pecked me. He strikes as a dying wind. I am unharmed, foolish one. I stand. The darkness will not protect you for long. You cannot escape the inevitable. I failed to find the intruder. We wish to be left alone.
The Talisman of Fire is in the Lost City.
It's not lost no more.
The Keepers closed access to this city after a cataclysm buried it underground years ago, but we found their key, so they didn't do a very good job. The Talisman of Water is in a hidden cavern underneath the city where these things live. The room that holds the talisman is trapped by the Keepers, and also it's no longer there.
Empty. Now what?
Geary, one of our informants, got eaten by spiders while living in the cave, so he's of no use. But luckily there's another guy living in the cave who is a lot more helpful. Lots of people living in this hidden cave. Both Geary and this guy, Raoul, got fired from the opera house just above the caves. And Raoul likes to sing about how much the woman who fired him is a piece of shit. I thought he was an enemy at first and hid while he did his opera number.
I, Raoul, do accuse you of using treachery to obtain your wealth. Then Lady Valeria sings, I, Lady Valerius, have obtained the opera house, yes. Right from under your nose, you must kiss the ground underneath my toes.
He gives us the key to the opera house and sends us on our way to rob the place, including the water talisman, ostensibly stolen by the capitalist pig who now runs things. The final talisman, Air, was entrusted to the Hammers. The temple is fully active day and night, so instead of trying to sneak in as usual, we pretend to be a Hammerite novice, so we can walk in through the front door and explore at our leisure. They trust us completely, so obviously I robbed them blind. Back at the cathedral doors with our talisman collection, we finally sneak in and grab the eye. And then the eye locks the door again. Of the cathedral, full of Hammerite zombies who cackle evilly and start sprinting when they see you for a chance to cave your skull in. We need another out. That's where this fucking guy comes in. He realizes we're trying to escape, and he's willing to help, but we have to help him in return. He's got a bit of an errand list, and one time his audio started glitching, so all I caught was,
Thou canst only make one for thyself in the tenor factory. We do it all the time and praise the builder for his works.
So off I go. First he wants the rosary beads from his room, then he wants a hammer, a candle, and a holy rite. Then he remembers that he wants the hammer sanctified. Then he wants us to bring it all to his grave to read him his final rites. But you know what? While I'm here, why don't I go pick up the corpses of his friends so I can bury those too? And actually the Hammerite zombies are a bit much. Kill every single one of them in the level.
Bury Brother Martello.
He doesn't tell you to do these things all at once. No, you do a task, come back, and then get another one. This is why you're dead, quest giver. It's because you suck and people hate you. After all this, we finally get a key, but not to the back door. The key is for the armory, so we can pick up the massive bomb sitting on its table to blow the door wide open instead.
Please bury Brother Martello.
We bring the eye back to definitely not the devil and his henchwoman and patiently await our payment. Our payment comes in the form of Victoria gouging out one of our eyes and planting it on top of the eye we just stole so it can see, and leaving us to be eaten by vines. Yes, of course Cornelius is the trickster. Most of this cutscene is impossible to follow though, because Thief 1 doesn't have subtitles and they talk funny.
Think of me. If you be hungry, then feed, for I am the honey maker and the...
Before we're fully composted, the keepers cut us loose, then immediately run off again, leaving us to escape on our own. We're in Constantine's mansion, but it wasn't actually a mansion, it's a hell dimension. We need to find out what this man is doing with the eye. Also, fuck this enemy in particular. The trickster's goal, it turns out, is to bring darkness back to the world of man. We're just a scrunkly little guy though, and we can't stop him alone, so we run to the Hammers for help. Constantine got to them first, and the Hammerites have gone underground, where they ask us to bring them back their high priest and the chisel. Very important stuff right now, but if we help them here, they'll help us figure out how to deal with the trickster. That help comes in the form of a booby-trapped eye. We have to sneak into the new hell dimension created by Constantine to swap out the real eye for this one, and seriously, this fucking guy! When we find Constantine, he's already mid-ritual, but he slowly walks from pedestal to pedestal, and swapping out the eye in the center for our eye is really, really easy. I spent more time waiting and watching him cast his incantations than I did doing any sneaking, but then...
It exploded.
We wake up outside in the snow, but apparently we at least got our eye back? We're approached by a keeper who starts talking mystical nonsense at Garrett, but Garrett is tired, so he wants nothing to do with any of that. Even though the keeper warns him that there is a book that Garrett needs to read. Garrett is not a reader, and walks off as the keeper tells him to beware of the dawn of the Metal Age, now that the trickster is dead. The end. I enjoyed Thief 1 a lot, despite its numerous bugs and aged gameplay. I like that we're playing as a guy who is just trying to pay his rent, man. He's very aggressively pulled into the main plot against his own will. He just wants to retire in peace, but he keeps having to spend all his money buying more supplies at the start of each mission. Something I also really appreciate about games like Thief is the quick save dynamic. You can save anywhere, anytime, and reloading is instant. This meant that no matter what situation I was in, I could experiment with different approaches very quickly, without the game going through a whole song and dance to tell me that I lost. Oh, you poor baby, you were found. The cards found you. They're going to look you up or you're dead, or whatever the flavor of the stealth game I'm in is. Now you have to go back to mission start, or maybe when you're found you have to run away very quickly and then hide in a cupboard for 3 odd minutes for the alert, evasion, and caution timers to run off, so you can try again. Because Thief allowed me to immediately reset, I never got frustrated. I could take as long as I needed with different tactics, angles, or routes, safe in the knowledge that the game would respect my time. And I will say that was especially necessary because of some of the bugs in this game. Despite the way some guards ignore you even when your face is directly in their crotch, sometimes they see you even in deep shadow. Sucks. F9. This game also gives you a lot of options in terms of approach. If you're not playing on hard or expert, you can of course kill everyone in sight. That does destroy the illusion that you're just a humble thief though, and it makes things very easy. I should know, because my early tactic was to enter whatever building I needed to enter and knock out every single guard in the entire area so I could go about my business in peace. Sure, there's no ranged knockout like an arrow to the throat, but I stopped using this tactic too often because it took away the sneaking aspect pretty directly. Except in the Thieves Guild. Fuck the Thieves Guild.
Oh, please. You'll have to do better than that. Oh, please. You'll have to do better than that. Oh, please. You'll have to do better than that. Oh, please. Guards, over here!
If you choose not to remove any threats directly, you'll have to rely on your toolkit and awareness, strategically dousing flames, finding out-of-the-way entrances, scaling rooftops, or sticking a rope arrow in the ceiling so you can jump straight past them. Get creative. The physics in this game do work against you from time to time. I'm not even talking about the guards. I got stuck in doorways and on top of flat surfaces a lot. Especially on doors though, because when you open them and you're still somewhat inside their hitbox, they will only open as far as you don't body block them, which was especially annoying in the cathedral, where all the doors would spookily close on their own while I was busy dragging dead bodies through them. But I was happy with the game overall, so I moved on to Thief 2, The Metal Age. The Metal Age has started. The trickster is dead, and there are no more trees to be found in the city. The Mechanists, a branching faction from the Hammerites, are buying the loyalty of the city's nobility and guards with fancy machinery. The City Watch is led by a fanatical new sheriff, Truart, who arrests everyone and anyone while making up charges on the spot. That's none of Garrett's business though. He's busy paying rent. Our first mission involves Basso the Boxman from the previous game. We broke him out and he's decided to leave the thieving path with his future wife, who is currently an indentured servant and her boss won't let her go. We gotta break her out. For love, but mostly money, and so Basso owes us a favor. This game is impossibly dark in a lot of places. If Thief 1 was can't find shit, Thief 2 is I cannot see shit. I assume this is because they added a new item, the flare, that lets you illuminate the area for a short while. Trouble is, when you run out of flares, the place is still dark, so I would crank up the gamma in order to see literally anything at all in some areas. But at least the noisemaker arrow no longer sucks. It now attracts anything with ears within a 100-mile radius, and the game lets me break windows now. Yay! The first mission is very get used to playing Thief again, and the main thing we learn is that Basso is a shitty thief but a great lockpick, and when you only hear his name partially, it counts as an insult. Basso! Sometime later, we're approached by a client who hires us to frame a certain Watch Lieutenant Hagen for stealing from the evidence vault. That requires us to break into the City Watch building. It's risky, but pays enough for us to lay low for a while. This mission showcases some terrible NPC pathing. It got worse since Thief 1 somehow. Often, when the guards are alerted, they don't walk back to their normal cycles. They just freeze in place wherever they lost their suspicion, where they proceed to be unbudgeable, save when I directly tap them on the shoulders. This level also taught me that I can drop items from my inventory. I didn't know that, so I've been hauling every scrap of paper imaginable around and violently throwing all other objects to free my hands. Turns out you can just press R. You have to do this to complete one of the objectives, and I literally had to look it up because I thought my game was bugged. After all our hard work, we're finally off to move some of this merchandise with a fence, Sammy. Except Sammy sold us out, and we have to flash bomb the guards when they ambush us in the Crippled Burrick Inn. Apparently Truart's after us directly now. This mission is the first one that has us traversing the city itself, instead of robbing a single residence. That meant I got lost a lot, but it also introduced the concept of running very fast and far until the guards give up. We decide to move our operation to Shillbridge, where the next mission starts with Garrett casually cleaning his mechanical eye. When Garrett said, "At least I have my eye back," at the end of Thief 1, he wasn't kidding. I initially thought he'd just taken the eye gem and shoved the whole thing in his socket, but no, it turns out the hammers he asked for help also gave him a new eye. A mechanical one crafted by the, then Hammerite, Karis. The same Karis now leading the Mechanists. This game's big bad. Anyway, the keepers are knocking on our door and order us to come with them. Garrett says no, but the keeper says yes, and Garrett says no, so the keeper says, "Aw, please," and Garrett says, "God, fine, you're so annoying." We're taken to hear the interpreter and translator rattle off another prophecy regarding the Mechanist rise of power, but Garrett could not possibly care less. In an effort to persuade us to care, our keeper friend tells us where we might find out who hired Truart to kill us, and because we have nothing better to do, we decide to check it out. We're to attend a Mechanist seminar the following night, or in our case, we're going to sit at the door and quietly listen in. Karis is having a chat with Truart about the real-life human beings he's experimenting on, and oh look, he can turn people into rust. Truart loves human experiments and also money, so he promises to pick up undesirables for Karis if Karis promises to give him piles of money. Karis agrees and quietly hides the tape he's been running to record the entire conversation for future blackmail. We would also like to blackmail Truart. Time to heist the bank for that tape. This mission is where we truly deal with Mechanist security in full force. There are static security cameras and literal cannons, and walking security cameras and literal cannons. The static types can only be disabled through security terminals, but the walking sort can be disabled through water. The big robots are also weak to door frames. Karis gave all of his robots his own voice, and because he sounds remarkably like Droopy the cartoon dog, their aura isn't particularly threatening. Also voiced by the same guy who does Garrett's voice. Again, Stephen Russell.
So, once again we are met. And the woman of the woods, didst thou come here together?
The keepers were training me to be one of them, but I found other uses for those skills.
Recording in hand, we visit Truart's mansion so we can ambush him in his bedroom. With blackmail. Unfortunately, Truart gets murdered as we're 2 steps away from his door. Can't blackmail a corpse without necromancy, so we investigate the room for evidence of the killer and find a keyring belonging to Lieutenant Mosley of the City Watch. When she leaves work early one night, letter in hand, we decide to shadow her. She drops the letter off on a random street corner, and Garrett tells us to wait and see who picks it up. I'm not kidding, it took a solid 3 minutes of just sitting there. I thought I'd bugged it out somehow. Riveting gameplay. A pagan comes to pick it up and scurries off towards the graveyard where mechanists are waiting to ambush him. Wounded, he still manages to escape into a nearby hell portal. The portal leads to a pagan village, and inside the pagan village is another hell portal, and that one leads to Victoria, the eye gouger from the first game. She insists that we have a common enemy in the mechanists and we should team up. Garrett reluctantly agrees, and she immediately sends us off on errands. Go figure out what Karis is up to. At Angel Watch, the Mechanist's tower where a ball is being held, we find out that Karis isn't even attending. He's leaving his guests terrible quality voice notes instead.
Privilege.
In them, Karis promises the nobles their own personal metal servants to take home. The same servants we can find around this place who whimper and cry laugh when they're knocked out and otherwise stand in a corner breathing heavily, mumbling things like, "Please help me." This mission is also where I found out that if you knock someone out and they fall into a fire and die, that doesn't count as killing anyone. That's just them being clumsy. And no, throwing knocked out characters into the fire yourself doesn't work. That's still murder. I tried. Honestly, a lot of noble guests show worrying behavior.
Is this...
We grab the information we came for and get out. Karis is rewriting Hammerite's scripture because he considers himself a prophet and even equal to the builder himself. And the servants are weapons. They contain the gas that can turn people into rust. To learn more, we have to find Cavador, the top guy working on the project on an out-of-the-way island. After visiting the island, though, we realize that he's not there. Instead, we find a submarine that will go to where he actually is. We stow away until we arrive at the Lost City.
It's not lost no more.
Yes, that one. Find Cavador, sling him over our shoulder, and drag him back to Victoria. Through him, we learn that they were sent to procure masks, the kind the servants are wearing, as well as a device called the Cultivator. To figure out what all of this means, we break into another mansion to steal someone else's masks, so we can take a closer look. Turns out the mask and cultivator combination effectively turns the servants into mobile chemical weapons. They can spray rust gas out of their mouth through their masks using the cultivator. That rust gas will eat up any organic life it touches and continues to propagate as long as there is organic matter around. Karis gave the nobles these servants because the city's nobility maintained the only greenery left anywhere. Their gardens were to be the starting points of a city-wide rust gas reaction, killing everyone save Karis and his mechanical children in their sealed-off cathedral. Garrett doesn't want to rush into anything, but Victoria immediately attacks the cathedral moments after Garrett leaves. We scramble after her, but it's too late. She's losing. In a last-ditch effort, she turns herself into a gigantic vine, spreading all throughout the building, asking Garrett to finish the job. That job is to forge a new remote control for the servants to tell them to go home. So when Karis presses the Destroy Mankind button, they'll release the gas inside of the cathedral and nowhere else. Karis takes this time to talk shit to Garrett throughout the entire mission. He genuinely sounds like a scorned lover half the time. He's really mad we don't want to play with him. He also gets very upset when he imagines everyone dying and not even thanking him for the pleasure.
But will they lift up their arms and praise Karis as the vapors make them pure? Nay.
We succeed, and Karis dies screaming, so he must be very upset at himself for not saying thank you. The keepers approach Garrett once again and confirm that everything happened as it was written. This pisses Garrett off, and he orders them to tell him the rest of the prophecies. The end. Thief 2 was a logical continuation to Thief 1. It was more of the same, but polished. They opened up the levels of each mission more depending on what the goal was. You had to traverse part of the town to get to the building you were robbing here and there, and on the way you could break into a few side areas, pick up some extra cash, listen in on pompous nobles yapping about their status. That also let the devs sprinkle in some callbacks to Thief 1. During the Angel Watch mission, you can find a tower belonging to a disgraced mage turned necromancer mentioned in the mage mission of Thief 1. If you read his book, the Book of Ash, it'll summon 2 zombies into the room. I did feel slower in this game than the first. I'm not sure if that was vibes-based or a real thing, but they definitely took my auto run away. It also had some trouble with voice line loading. When you save in the middle of an NPC conversation and reload, they will restart their conversation. That can be very useful if you've missed some of it, but sometimes a guard I'd already knocked out would start yapping on reload, and I don't think that's intentional.
Are you all right? No, of course you're not all right. Sorry.
The map is much improved though. You can now write on it. It's by no means perfect, but it does help when you're trying to comb through an area. Being able to cross off an area as done meant I wasn't running circles as often. The maps are also more detailed, allowing for more systematic thieving. Although I didn't need to be particularly careful about looting this time around, because they removed the loot quantity requirements from every difficulty in several levels, including Expert. 7 out of the 15 available. Thief 1 has missions that don't require you to loot this way either, but it's only the tutorial and the missions you do after you accept a job worth 100,000 gold. Even then, you're not passing on robbing the mages blind. In Thief 2, it seems to have no real rhyme or reason. Why aren't we using the opportunity to thief around a little during the City Watch break-in? Wouldn't Garrett want to make a point of sticking it to him? I know you can't implicate yourself, but how would they know? Just steal it from the evidence vault. You're already framing someone else for it anyway. We don't even have a loot requirement while breaking into the bank? And another thing, there are too many characters with too little consequence. During Thief 1, the characters we meet are generally single-use cases. Cutty points us towards more money, then dies. Basso lets us sleep with his sister, presumably. Ramirez tries to kill us and receives swift justice by way of me looting his house bare, and most everyone else dies, is already dead, or is singing opera in a cave.
You're and you're in, yes!
Victoria and Constantine become our main focus after the sword mission. The game doesn't introduce more than necessary. In Thief 2, we get our first mission with Basso, who now owes us a favor we never collect on. We frame Lieutenant Hagen, but we don't hear back from that, and Truard, who is supposed to be a massive pain in the neck, dies before we can talk to the guy. Sammy sold us out to the City Watch, and we somehow let it slide. Mosley is working with the pagans and facilitated Truard's death, but we don't hear from her again. And Karis, we don't meet at all unless you go tap on his window during the final mission. It all seems vaguely disconnected, and it made it so I mostly thought Karis was a big dumb loser and Garrett had lost his touch a bit. I will say that he also seems like he's becoming a more emotionally available individual altogether. There are a few moments where Garrett is audibly upset with the situation. On the island with the submarine, we can find a pagan agent, Lotus. Lotus is freezing to death in his cell, and when we talk to him, he asks us to put him out of his misery. Garrett shows genuine concern for his situation, even calling him friend. When Victoria dies, he also sounds extremely affected. This man experienced growth. Something I also really liked was the casing mission. Before you break into the mansion to steal the masks, you case the joint the mission prior. Your map is empty and your job is to fill it out by going into as many rooms as possible. I imagine Garrett just sitting there with a piece of paper and some charcoal, drawing maps as he goes. Then you use whatever parts of the map you manage to find in the mask theft mission. In general, I enjoyed Thief 2 a lot, though I did miss some of the more supernatural parts present in Thief 1. The mechanical enemies became a bit samey after a while. There are zombies and specters here and there, but they're hidden away. It makes sense story-wise because we destroyed the trickster, empowering the builder of sorts. Now that we destroyed Karis, we balanced the scales again for Thief 3. Thief 3 is interesting. By this point, the original Thief studio, Looking Glass, had shut down, so Ion Storm got to try their hand at Deadly Shadows. The Thief series was planned as a trilogy, and work on the game had started before the studio's closure, so some of the team moved over and continued work as usual. Mostly. The change in studio and engine definitely shifted the vibe of this installment. The briefing section for each mission that was previously animated with still images of whatever the job was going to be was replaced by a text box. The UI has visible wheels to scroll through now, and the compass is integrated into the visibility gem. The mission start screen also includes a section that shows us our loadout, which carries over from mission to mission. This is Garrett looking the scrungliest he has ever looked. The lighting did him so dirty. He's gone goblin mode. He'll start mumbling about his precious soon. You can play this thief in third person too, so you can observe Garrett in all his glory as he scrungles through the level. It's also not well optimized. Maybe that's because my PC is so much newer than the expected hardware, but I have to drag Thief 3 into a mission kicking and screaming. The loading screens hit 3 odd minutes sometimes. I've been using fan-made patches for Thief 1 and 2. Thief 1 has T-Fix, and Thief 2 has T2Fix, lovingly dubbed Taffer Patcher. It changes and fixes various things, improve textures, crash fixes, and it adds proper widescreen settings. Thief 3 has a mod like this, the Sneaky Upgrade, again with bug fixes. Widescreen, fan-made briefing cutscenes, and so many other things. But I mainly needed it to fix my loading screens. It was unplayable without it. The loading screens, even after the fix, get in the way of my earlier points about quick reloading. Thief 3 doesn't reload instantly, so trying different options became more tedious. Even that short moment of a loading screen popping up at all made my eyes twitch. Thief 1 and 2 are instant. Thief 3 has more loading screens in general. Like Thief 2, it expands on the open world situation. You now have time between missions to explore the town, which is littered with fences to sell your haul to and shady vendors to buy supplies from. You can also listen in on conversations to figure out what might be a good target for a break-in. Usually a duo will be discussing their criminal plans loudly in the middle of the street, and you'll be there to get ahead of them. Going from zone to zone in the city does throw you into a loading screen again, which feels a little awkward. The guards still say silly things, and the hammers and pagans have little hubs as well, where they say their own silly things. I also like that I can carry over gear from mission to mission. I could stock up on elemental arrows before each one, and money wasn't an issue anyway. Thief 3 introduces an easy mode alongside the other ones, and I decided to use it this time. Initially because I thought the endless loading screens were going to be a mainstay, but I also figured I'd take the opportunity to see how much easier Thief games would be if I allowed killing. The answer is a lot. I played in everyone's face and never paid the price. Let's talk about the story. Our first mission targets a noble staying at the inn, Lord Julian Rutherford. He carries a satchel that seems important, so we're going to steal it. Sat in front of the fire with his family's cook, they are discussing his options to steal the bloodline opal from his family estate. Apparently the Rutherfords decide who gets to be the leader based on who owns it. He will need his family medallion to open the vault that holds it though, so he better not let that satchel out of his sight. Nope.
I stole it.
After stealing the opal, we first try to fence it to Heartless Perry, but it's too hot for him, so he sends us off to Black Bertha, who I highlighted in my notes as the fence with the fuck-ass accent.
Somehow, I expected somebody taller. I'm Black Market Bertha, glad to meet you. Perry said to expect you. Said you'd have an opal for me. I'm sure we can do business. Am I right? Oh, this is a fine take. Someone's been up all night burgling. Am I right?
Bertha has a letter for us asking to meet in secret. A keeper shows up and informs us that we'll be allowed to learn more of their prophecies, but only if we steal 2 artifacts from the Hammers and Pagans respectively. Odd request, but fine. We steal a sacred chalice from the Hammerites and the Jacknal's Paw from the Pagans. The chalice was no problem at all, though it is strange that this guy doesn't care at all about the corpse I created in the middle of his study. The paw drove me nuts for a good minute, and I won't get into it here, but let's just say that blood sacrifices are harder than people make it out to be, and I'm probably on several lists now. We finally get an invite to the annual prophecy reading by interpreter Kadika and translated by translator Gamal, a literal child. They mention the end of the word, yes, word, not world, and a brethren and betrayer. Garrett's response is a lukewarm, wow, that means nothing at all, but the keepers insist that this is very smart, actually. and you wouldn't believe it, but they ask us for even more favors. They want us to find a lost compendium, as well as the glyph key that opens it. Both have been completely impossible to find for a very long time, but figure it out, I guess. We find the glyph key in the library of an underground city populated by fish people smote by the trickster in ancient times, obviously. And then we hop onto a ship full of zombies to find out that the ship's captain had found the compendium and brought it home to his mansion, where his widow sits mumbling in the tower room, while her supposed friends are scheming to steal from her, and her servants are both worried and annoyed in equal measure. This is my favorite mission. The atmosphere is fantastic. Mournful yet vaguely spooky music plays. It's storming outside. I'm ransacking a mansion. Peak thief content. I find the compendium, and we finally get to read the thing. It mentions that the evil ones will be pointed out when the progress of time ceases. The keepers think that means we have to wait. Garrett says, fuck that, let me crash the clock tower real quick.
He has left? Yes, I can see that.
But instead of just halting the clockwork, the entire thing blows up. We're not mechanically inclined. After it falls over, the roof of the clock tower points directly towards the keeper hideout. I'm sure this doesn't mean anything. Also, Karika's dead. Orland, the obtuse first keeper, assumes we did it and locks us up only for us to escape seconds later.
He has left? Yes, I can see that.
The keepers send weird telepathic super keeper assassins called enforcers after us that just wander around town, killing anyone in their way, which seems weird as keeper business goes. We decide to visit one of our fences for help, but he's also dead. A letter in his store tells us to go home, and oops, there's another corpse and another letter that leads to some Garrett sympathizers from the keepers. They tell us it's time to break back into the keeper compound to get some answers and also fuck with Orland a bit. In Katika's room, we find another letter that asks me to meet someone in the Hall of Statues. Real popular thing these days, leaving me mysterious rendezvous messages. In the hall, we find a hideous old woman who uses runes to bring the statues to life to hunt me. We don't see her face at any point, by the way, this is just Garrett's description. He's a bit judgmental. With nothing left to go on, we decide to find a Hammerite detective known to be on the hunt for a hideous old woman much like ours. He tells us to go to Shilbridge Cradle, where a young girl was abducted by the old woman years ago. Cradle's a bit haunted. This mission spooked me a few times. It's got a very creepy atmosphere, and I'm sure it didn't help that I had to play in a pitch-black room because the game was too dark to see otherwise. It also has these enemies that are extremely tough to kill. They take several fire arrows to the face. When they get near, the lights will flicker and they start screaming when they spot you. Unpleasant. In the attic, we find a little ghost girl who looks suspiciously like Interpreter Gamal. She asks us to help her break free of this place. This is the Hammerite ghost from Thief 1, reincarnated. We have to remove her personal belongings from the cradle to make the building forget her. First, we have to find a bottle of her blood to flush it down a drainpipe. Then we grab her nightgown from an asylum patient's cell because the orphanage doubled as an asylum somehow and burn it. Now we have to find a toy belonging to an asylum patient and bring it to its proper place so we can be transported into the past as that patient to find the girl's intact diary so we can burn that. Then we pick up some OxyClean, not sponsored, to clean up the bloodstain in the attic where we first met, and she can leave. But we can't. Because the cradle remembers us now, so we have to check in as a patient by shoving ourselves into a cage to travel into the past again, where we run to the top of the building and jump out of the window so the cradle thinks we died.
He has left? Yes, I can see that.
But the girl's not done asking for help yet. Now she wants us to find her body. We follow her apparition through town, giving everyone a heart attack as we pass by, until we get to the tomb that holds her body. The tomb is covered in runes, and we can only wash them off using the girl's blood. We start scrubbing as, back at Keeper Central, Gamal is getting promoted to Interpreter. Gamal, who starts falling apart the more runes we wash off. She'd been using the girl's skin as a disguise, and she's actually the hideous old woman, or more a grotesque hag at this point, with multiple faces on her body. The ghost girl is free though, yay! And Gamal starts murdering keepers, yay! When we arrive at the keepers, they explain that Gamal is going after the final glyph, a powerful weapon, presumably. She also took the stuff I stole at the start of the game, the chalice in the paw. Gamal had been giving Orland orders through notes the entire time. She wanted the treasures found, and Orland didn't question it, figuring the notes came from Katika, until the notes kept coming after Katika's death. I'm supposed to fix it for them, as usual. Destroy the final glyph, Garrett! Also, everything is your fault, we've decided, Garrett! They get really mad when Garrett gets snarky with them because they do literally blame us for all this. A sequence of events was started when you stole the chalice in the paw. Yeah. On your orders. The glyphs even warned you about this. You still didn't listen. You failed in every conceivable direction, including some purely theoretical ones. All of your efforts ended in abject failure, save for the problems I managed to fix, despite your attempts to fuck me over at every turn. I'm disappointed Gamal left any of you in one piece. Anyway, we break into Gamal's lair.
He has left? Yes, I can see that.
While there, we find a map with her plans. When keeper friend guy Artemis shows up, we tell him we're planning to destroy the final glyph when we find it, and he's shocked because that's what Gamal wants to do too. He leaves to have a stern talk with Orland while we plan a museum heist to collect more artifacts, the key to finding the final glyph. One heist later, we're confronted by Artemis again, but he's behaving very un-Artemis-y. It's actually Gamal wearing his skin like a suit. Orland doesn't know that though, and runs up blubbering about how right Artemis was about everything, and he's about to tell us what we should do with the final glyph when Gamal kills him. We sneak away while she monologues to slot the artifacts we stole into various places around town, which reveals the final glyph inside of the fountain in front of our apartment. The glyph activates and destroys every glyph in existence ever. The statues stop moving, the keeper compound becomes visible to the public, and Gamal turns back into a very old woman as the remaining keepers surround her. The game ends with a full circle moment when a young girl tries to pickpocket Garrett and is caught as he tells her it's not easy to see a keeper, especially one who does not wish to be seen. The end. Garrett is a keeper now. I enjoyed Thief 3 just fine, more than I thought I would after the especially rough start, but it definitely started to show some cracks. The map opening up makes sense in terms of progression, but it also interrupted the flow of the usual mission-to-mission gameplay. You don't buy your gear immediately before a level, you have to go out and vendor around. The vendors are quirky, and I like them, but it does slow things down. And the loading screens and general instability didn't help. It crashed a lot, especially while within the city, and especially when I knocked someone out and the local population erupted into a panicked frenzy.
Let's get out of here! I know you're the culprit. I'm gonna get someone to deal with you. I'll go take a look at those shadows.
Listening in on some of the potential robbery conversations is fun though. In Thief 3, you are no longer anonymous in any fashion. Everyone knows you. You are Master Thief Garrett. This vendor lady has a massive raging crush on you.
Garrett, I can't believe it's you in my store. Someone told me your place is over in South Quarter, Garrett. Yeah, that's not too far from here. Maybe I can see it sometime, or ever think of having a partner? It's just so great doing business with you, Garrett.
And this guy is pretending to be Garrett to get hired for a thieving job.
Hey, I'm the greatest thief that ever lived. I ain't concerned about appearances. Anyway, with all that thieving I do, I ain't got time for no baths or nothing.
You can also buy climbing gloves in this game, but if you don't check out the shop in the docks, you won't know that. They are fairly limited in their use though. Garrett can only use them to climb very straight walls, and he can't move over to latch onto anything vaguely climbable looking. The gloves exist because the engine didn't play nice with the rope arrow, but I'm still mad about it. The engine also made Garrett forget how to swim, and that landed me in jail one time.
Enough with the funny looks. Just keep moving, Taffer.
This elevator doesn't make noise unless you're inside of it. I have a few gripes with the story too. For one, the Keeper assassins just start killing anyone they see once they're unleashed upon the city. Do the Keepers not mind? It seems like they should. Garrett deciding to become a Keeper is even stranger. Artemis was, as far as the thief community considers it, the Keeper who recruited us initially, and kept in contact afterwards. So maybe we feel like we owe him after his death? But while Garrett had some character development in that direction, it wasn't nearly enough for him to do a full heel turn and join the Keepers. What did the Keepers even do at this point? Their glyphs don't work, and even if they did, their last interpreter died. A potential Thief 4 could have explained all that, and the only reason I'm bringing it up here is because we didn't hear a thing about Thief for 10 years, and when we eventually did, it was Thief 2014. Just Thief again. Less a continuation, more a reboot.
There's one thing the city's taught me. You can put a price on anything. Secrets, reputations, a life. And trust? If you have to ask, you can't afford it.
In Thief 2014, we do not play as Garrett, but we do play as Garrett. This is a separate Garrett from the original Garrett and a separate thief from the original thief. However, they want us to know that we are just as cool as Garrett from Thief. Not this one, the other one. The city is even bigger than it was in 3, and you can scale roofs as you please. The way gear works in this installment is a lot more linear. You use the gold you collect at a vendor who doesn't just sell arrows and the like, but direct upgrades as well. A bigger health bar, quieter arrows, softer souls for better sneaking. You can also buy specialty tools to access loot you otherwise couldn't. A razor to steal paintings from their frames, a wire cutter to disable traps, and a wrench to steal golden plaques from buildings and unscrew grates. This is the first Thief game that doesn't start with general thievery as a mission. We're thrown directly into the main story. We're on a job with Aaron, an overconfident thief who Garrett clearly doesn't like very much. Basso contracted us both to steal the Primal Stone from Northcrest Manor. On our way there, Erin kills guards whenever she pleases, and that gets Garrett real pissy. So he steals our climbing tool, the claw, before we reach the glass roof of the manor, where we peek in to see a ritual is going on. Garrett hates those too, so he tries to back off, but Erin refuses and starts a fight when Garrett shows her the claw he took. Claw ends up on the glass, Erin ends up on the glass breaks, we fail to throw her the claw to pull her up, she gets dunked in the middle of the ritual soup, we fall in after her and get knocked out. Time skip. When we wake up, we're getting dragged into the city, where a new sickness sprung up and the guards got real violent. After the ritual incident, we received a bit of primal energy in our right eye. This allows us to use focus. It's Witcher senses, detective vision, whatever you want to call it. It allows you to see interactable stuff in your environment. Useful when the city is largely grey and dark. You can upgrade your focus with new abilities throughout the game. Easier pickpocketing, visual noise detection, more silent movement, and so on. Using it does deplete your focus meter though, so now you have that to worry about alongside your health bar. We eventually make it home to the clock tower and are greeted by a message from Basso, wondering where we've been.
Basso!
A year has passed since the ritual, and he's so happy to see us, he gives us a job immediately. Steal a ring from the late Cornelius Greaves, whose corpse is now at Cinderfall. At Cinderfall, we come face to face with the Thief Taker General, TTG for short. He finds our ring first, and while we steal it off him, he does see us doing it. Back at Basso's, we're introduced to the client, Orion. He's happy with our work and wants us to steal a book from the House of Blossoms, an opium den, next. We don't know where that is, but Erin does, so we decide to visit her hideout for clues, where she pulls us into a strange ghost world and guides us to a hidden compartment that holds a medallion we take to the House of Blossoms. How did this clue us in on where the House of Blossoms is? No idea. Still no idea. The medallion opens a secret door that leads to some ruins filled with books, including the book we're after. We're forced to escape through a different exit though, and that exit happens to be the room the TTG is having sex in. He stops enjoying it the moment we enter, no relation, and becomes violent with the girl. Room's on fire, Madam comes in threatening to cut his balls off, TTG throws a bed on me, and I run away.
He has left? Yes, I can see that.
When we make it back to Basso's, he's not there, but Orion is feverishly looking for the book I was meant to steal. We give it to him in exchange for information on Basso. He was taken to the keep. If we can find a guy named Jacob, he'll help us get in. Jacob is dead. Instead, we go straight to the source of the keep's blueprints, Eastwick, to get a route from him. Eastwick is dead. The blueprints are still around for me to read though, and after a little action escape scene, we make our way to the keep to sneak in. Never mind, the keep is literally blowing up when we arrive, so we walk in uninterrupted. We free Basso, who tells us to meet him at a nearby inn after I'm done robbing the legendary Great Safe. The TTG is also at the safe somehow. He tries to stop us, but fails, so we crack the safe and get transported into Erinland again. It seems she spent some time in Moira Asylum, and if we want to know more, we should come hang out there. In the real world, we picked up a piece of the Primal Stone in the vault and decide to ask Basso to row us out to Moira Asylum immediately. Moira Asylum is doing its best to be scary. I know fear is a personal thing, but it failed miserably in my case. The place is abandoned, but there's a bunch of patients still sitting in cells, playing with doctor corpses. Some patients have also turned into golem creatures because of the effects of the primal inside of Erin. We get some more Erin flashbacks that show Baron Northcrest experimenting on her, and the scene ends with Erin telling us that the Northcrest bastards stole us away. purposefully vague for a reason, because when we visit the Baron's manor to find her, he tells us that Orion is also a Northcrest, his brother. He has Eren and wants to do another ritual. He just needs one more primal piece, the part that entered our eye during the ritual. We run off to escape the mansion, now under attack by Orion's goons, and I do a lot of climbing and jumping in the process, but somehow TTG shows up anyway to sneer at us for a minute. We escape to the clock tower where the Queen of Beggars, the woman who saved Garrett at the start of the game, somehow talks at us about how Eren is fused with the city, and if she dies with the primal fused to her, the city will also unravel like it never existed. If we can fix the primal stone though, we can use it to remove the primal from her. Off to the cathedral to interrupt Orion, who is trying to anoint people with Eren's blood to cure the sickness. We get thrown into Erenland in the middle of this, and this allows us to steal Orion's primal stone piece, who runs off with Eren as TTG shows up. I did even more climbing and jumping to get here, and the place is swarming with Orion's goons, but somehow TTG shows up right behind me. TTG, who is not welcome in Orion's camp and has trouble walking, made it here moments after I did. We kill him.
As a rule, I don't kill people unless I have no other choice. But just like someone else I know, I don't follow the rules, do I?
When we find Orion again, he's shouting about betrayals and power-hungry people, only for Eren to turn into mega primal goddess or something or the other and drain his life forces entirely. The boss fight is a cat-and-mouse game until I plant the stone on her forehead and suck the primal out. She slips and falls again. This time I throw the claw in time, and we wake up with her claw in the wood next to us. Wet footsteps leading away, implying she survived. The end. There are several problems with this game that we'll get into, but before we do, I genuinely don't think this is a bad game. It's an okay game. It does things competently for the most part. It has the usual bugs, probably the only classic thief feature in here. Thief 14 is fine as a game where you are a thief who steals things sometimes and is also Batman. This version of Garrett doesn't pay rent. He lives at the clock tower for free and instead collects trinkets like a magpie. I enjoy rummaging around the city to find all the loot. I think the combat music is pretty good. The action set pieces are neat to look at, and I actually like Garrett's design. I think he looks cool. Edgy boy hanging out in the clock tower? Hell yeah. Thief 14's main problem is that it says it's part of the Thief franchise, and I just disagree. It really shot itself in the foot with that particular claim. This is not Thief. This is a thieving game. One of the game's problems is the story and everything surrounding it. You don't actually get all of the information in-game. If you heard me tell the story just now and thought to yourself, is she just leaving too much stuff out? This sounds incoherent. Then yeah, partially, but also no, not really. You got all the same information that I got. There's a reason I played this game years ago and apparently forgot about it immediately. It had no hooks. This game is a reboot, and because of it, they've tried to stuff it to the gills with world building. There are 215 notes in this game, mostly world building and flavor, but notes do not make up for actual character. Worse, some of the more pertinent information isn't available in the game. We don't know anything about Eren or her relationship with Garrett save the killing part, and a possible previous working relationship, which means I don't have a reason to care. All we get is a young woman who is annoyingly cocksure, only to fall flat on her face immediately, after which she spends the rest of the game as a ghost who yells at us about her trauma. She gets absolutely no character development. I'm not saying every character has to be likable, but I genuinely can't find any part of her that I do like. There's nothing to root for. But Garrett and Eren's actual meeting takes place in a 4-part comic book series called Tales from the City. She's an orphan who got caught up in prostitution but killed her first client. After that, she ran to Basso, who introduced her to Garrett, who, ironically, she tried and failed to pickpocket earlier. Garrett trains her in thieving, but she kills too easily, and one night kills a guard to protect Garrett. He argues she could have knocked him out instead, and they split up, with Eren becoming an assassin. It's still not a lot, but it's more than the game gave us. The comic also introduces the TTG, who explains that his leg was permanently damaged by one of Garrett's climbing hooks. That's why he hates Garrett so much. because that part really doesn't make any sense in the game itself. When we steal his ring, he yells, "You!" But we had never met this man before then. Then there's the Thief Companion app, a phone app. It tracked your stats but also included an official wiki. It describes the appearance of the gloom sickness, the following lockdowns, what the primal is, what the sloop the guards keep mentioning even is. In case you're interested, it's an unpleasant-looking hot soup cum stew. I'm not going to question that further. We also get backstory on House Northcrest. We keep hearing people in the game talk about the disgraced ancestors and so on and so forth, but only in the app do we read what that means. Harland Northcrest slept with his wife's handmaiden, who birthed Aldous, Orion. Orion grew up on the streets with his now dismissed mother and grew to hate his father. But the Northcrests had a link to the primal. They could sense it, somehow. So now Baron Elias Northcrest went looking for his bastard brother to help him with the ritual that the game opens with. Orion realized that Elias was too greedy in how much primal energy he meant to pull out of the earth, and of course, things went tits up. Orion saw this as his chance to attack his brother with a legitimate reason, and this caused Elias to incarcerate Orion in Moira Asylum. This is the betrayal Orion keeps raving about when we meet him. They don't talk about this in the game, bar some up-to-interpretation notes. It's just in the app. Orion's entire motivation and backstory is in the app. And the app was shut down on the 25th of May, 2018. I had to find this information on the wiki. It's hard to get invested in the characters in general, but this doesn't help. The big bad Orion is barely seen or heard until the end, when he just dies. Other big bad Baron Northcrest is also barely seen or heard until the end, where he gives us a bit of really cranky exposition and then leaves. Other big bad, TTG, is seen several times, but he's so comically overdone that he circles back to being boring. When he shows up, it's usually very short. He shouts, "A thief!" or "You!", twirls his mustache evilly, and then we run away very quickly. If the scene is any longer than that, it's because the game wants to emphasize what a bad man he is. I'm not invested in any of these people. The app is also the only place where there is any mention of the trickster or the builder, though just that they were forgotten as time moved on with industrialization. This is another thing that makes this game not Thief. None of the actual Thief hallmarks are part of the game. There are no Hammerites or pagans anymore. They've been replaced by bog standard guards. The City Watch are just guys who chase you. Orion's Graven are just guys who chase you. They have no personality or soul. If you played me a soundbite of either faction, I couldn't tell you which is which, unlike the stark difference between the original factions.
Hush, Sneaksy friend. Time runs out. There be's a mechanist named Cavador.
Thou wert not with the Order of the Hammer before?
Nay, those brothers were always too stern and righteous for my choice.
Even the monsters lack personality compared to the weird, backwards-talking Hammerite mages, the dumbest bricks undead, the actually kind of terrifying sounding Hammerite revenants, or the variety of hell beasts. And when I list them out like that, I'm reminded that the enemy variety in 14 is also non-existent. There are guard dudes and golem guys. That's it. Because the game has more realistic graphics, it also slowed down a lot of interactions with the world. In the earlier Thief games, you could walk up, blackjack, scoot back into the shadows in under a second. Not in Thief 14. Garrett knocks a guard down, slowly lowers them to the ground, tucks them into bed, gives them a goodnight kiss, writes them a cute note to wake up to in the morning, prepares breakfast, phones their job to let them know they won't be in today, and then you can scoot back into the shadows. Looting is awkward for the same reason. The E button is both for interacting and peeking, so when you're spamming the button to loot everything on the desk, sometimes you start peeking out of nowhere. The game world itself feels strangely empty. Thief 3 has a similar problem because there aren't that many people walking the streets at any given time, but it wasn't quite as obvious because you weren't scaling a lot of roofs, and the accessible area was decidedly smaller. In Thief 14, you spend a lot of time running around this city, and while the quarantine can explain some of it, the "a guy is getting hanged and there's a crowd" scenes are giving this vibe. But worst of all, the main reason this Thief game is not a Thief game is the complete lack of whimsy. Not a shred of whimsy in this game. Everything is played so completely straight. No more drunk or dumb guards. No one is exchanging weird yet oddly poignant words. They erased the word taffer. No one is taffing about anymore. Taffer was perfect and you fucked it. And Garrett is Batman now.
You walk a path few would wish.
That's the only one I know.
Ah, yes. You pride yourself on being a loner.
All because of that book. What's so important about it? It's not about the payment. It's who I am. I've been a ghost all my life. I'm no savior. I never asked for this.
They keep trying to pull in thief references, but that's really all they are. References. The crippled Burrick exists. Garrett's still being named Garrett, coincidentally. Basso is a name we know.
Basso!
But he doesn't have a hot sister. Garrett has a funky eye, just like the original Metal Eye. Moira Asylum is the captain mentioned from the third game. Very surface-level stuff. Missions don't have thieving targets. You could go an entire mission without stealing a single thing and you'd still be fine. I can't smash windows anymore. The town has a lot of windows and doors I can't use. They're just decoration. When I do open a window, if it leads to another zone, it pops a loading screen in the middle that I'm sure the window opening animation was supposed to hide. Loading screens keep interrupting cutscenes as well, at the worst moments. During the final fight, Aaron has a big emotional speech and it's supposed to cut to gameplay right away, except it gets interrupted by a loading screen, and those also have a habit of cutting off part of the voiceover that comes in directly after loading up.
And you, the one who I thought I could trust. Even you want the power that I have.
Not for the same reasons, Aaron. No. The power's killing you.
Oh, so now you care.
I always have.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you!
I draw the primal out of you. It all comes.
Really undercuts the emotional energy there. Original Garrett also didn't care that much about killing. He prefers not to, but not because he doesn't think it's morally right to kill, but because it's messy. The mission briefings are very clear about that, with lines like, "Violence is the mark of the amateur," or "Littering the opera house with blood and corpses is not worthy of a master thief such as yourself." Which makes sense. If you don't just steal, but also murder, the city guard is going to start breathing down your neck a lot more than you'd like. We're just trying to make rent out here. But this reboot Garrett? He's in a city where people are dying out of nowhere constantly. He could very easily get away with it. Thieves and swords do not get on well. My brother in Builder, the keepers have a sword in their standard loadout.
Now get your weapons.
Like I said, I don't hate this game on its own merits, but I do not like it as a Thief Series edition. Stephen Russell also didn't do Garrett's voice this time around, and listen, the new voice actor does a fine job, but he does not do a Russell job. He doesn't have that aloof quality I appreciate so much, which may well be a choice because the 14 world is so goddamn miserable, man.
The voices! Stop the nightmares!
The latest Thief installment is a VR game. I didn't play it, I watched a playthrough. It's fine, I'm sure. They brought Stephen Russell back and made him say, "I'm fluent in sarcasm," unironically.
He has left? Yes, I can see that.
This was initially supposed to be a video about stealth in video games, the way it evolved, the way games use it now. I was going to play Thief and use it as a good example study, but then I really enjoyed Thief and now this video is about Thief. Games have a really hard time making stealth engaging. If you give your player too many cool powers, it's not really stealth anymore. I really like stealth takedowns in the Arkham and Spider-Man games, but if you get caught in those, you're generally fine. I love Dishonored as well, and Corvo is voiced by Stephen Russell. But that game does not ask you to rely on stealth either. Stealth, most of the time, is an option. It's how you start. Then, when your cover is blown, you pull out your proverbial 12 gauge and start blasting. Assassin's Creed keeps you weak enough to care about stealth, But if you do get spotted, that means your only recourse is to run away very quickly to eventually dive into the nearest hay bale, even if that hay bale is sitting in a dead end. The guards will eventually just give up. Skyrim gives you every possible level of freedom to stealth around too. The game has so many bugs, they kind of have to allow for that. Put a bucket on the NPC's head and they'll let you ransack the place uncontested. Stealth Archer is a favorite for a reason. You can sit snugly in your sniper's nest, firing off arrows until the camp is fully deserted. Given enough time, the NPCs will consider that it must have been the wind who put an arrow through their jugular. The worst part about a lot of these stealth mechanics is the wait time. I praise the quick load for a reason. Waiting isn't an engaging mechanic. The reason I enjoyed Thief 1 and 2 so much is that I wasn't really punished for trying new things. It's not that the game had no consequences. The consequences were that you had to try again. When it comes to a lot of newer games, they look great, but I abhor loading screens and endless death or failure animations, no matter how pretty. Good thieving for me is about freedom. The reason I pick up thieving in every game I can is because it gives me options. I don't like to be locked out of potential paths or items because I don't know how to use a lockpick. In that sense, Skyrim is actually one of my favorite thieving games. If you choose to steal in Skyrim, you will be rich in no time. You can do anything, go anywhere. You are an absolute menace from the word go. In a way, I play Skyrim like I played Thief. Let's see how much loot I can stash in my house before I get caught. But Skyrim is not a thieving game only, it's a sandbox. It knows it's a sandbox. The point is to do whatever you want.
You know how when you paint and you start mixing colors, you get brown mush when you mix a whole lot of them together without thought? That's how I feel about games that add too much. Some colors mix together very well and turn into a pleasant new color. Bit of roguelike, bit of cards, beautiful roguelike deck builder. A lot of games nowadays become brown mush. We have to be open world, action, crafting, survival, farming, relationship simulator, card game, roguelike. I know this largely comes from executives hearing a buzzword and running to their developer team to tell them to add it no matter what because it's the new hot thing. I don't care if Balatro gameplay doesn't work in my psychological horror game, make it happen. That has worked out really well for hero shooters lately. Early Thief worked as well as it did because it knows what it is. Thief is a thieving game. You are a scrungly little rat man trying to make rent. You don't have a higher purpose. People just keep pulling you into their nonsense, and even when they do, you're still expected to thief about it. Rent waits for no one. That's why Thief 14 doesn't hit the same way. It wants to be a grimdark action RPG, not a thieving game. It has boss fights, for God's sake. It missed the part where Garrett isn't supposed to be some larger-than-life anti-hero. He slithers into mansions and swipes all the candelabras off the mantelpiece, all the while muttering snarky one-liners about how pretentious the local nobles are. The essence of thieving is hippity-hoppity, I'm coming for your property. There's inherent whimsy in that when turned into gameplay. I like leaving a level pretending that Garrett sprinted off, giggling like a gremlin, with stacks of coin in his pockets. I would say I hope they make another Thief game, but I actually don't. If they want to continue with the Garrett from 14, they need to change the title and pivot to just doing their own thing. The magic that made the series what it is has long since run out. Really good games are made by people who want to make something cool because they had a cool idea. Not sprawling conglomerates demanding the idea manifest and start producing money. You can't force it, it just happens. And Thief was really cool. This video was supposed to be so much shorter, and even with this length, I cut a lot of stuff. General jokey stuff, some lore and details that just broke the flow of this script. I'm putting together a Ko-fi video for all that cut content. If you would like to support creators using regular words that appear in the dictionary sometimes, here's my Ko-fi. This is my full-time job, believe it or not. I also have a Twitch where I currently stream 3 days a week. Come say hi. And remember, check every fireplace twice, just in case, even if it's still on fire.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
He has left? Yes, I can see that.